And I feel like this is a really nice follow-up to Tolu's talk, because one of the reasons why we wanted to have Stephenie here was to talk about the global trends in women's issues that are present to all of us right now, and also in large part, and I'm going to open the floor to you on this front and let you go where you want to go with this, about the current rise of anti-elitism and what that really means for women's issues. So, but I'd love to have you share a bit of your story if you would like to.
Sure. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is set the stage a little bit about what is going on globally with women first. And I'm going to give that overview. I'm going to preface it by saying we do know what interventions can work to address the issues I'm going to lay out. But I think it's really important for us to look at these issues holistically and understand sort of what most women in the world are facing today. So when I worked at the U.S. State Department, we looked at really 4 issues in terms of the way we focused on driving change, positive change for women and girls. And these are the 4 issues that most people work on. So I'm just going to use this as my framework. So those 4 issues are really political participation, which I know people are talking about yesterday, economic empowerment, addressing issues of gender-based violence and other traditional practices that are harmful to women, and then girls' education. So ensuring that girls have equal access to education than boys. Those are sort of the 4 big issues. So I'm going to give you a few statistics about those and then kind of back up and talk a little bit about some of the things we know that work. I will start off by saying that 80% of the world's population lives on $10 a day. I go to Starbucks twice a day, and I spend $5 at least in every one of my Starbucks visits. So I am very mindful that most of the women in the world make less than my 2 cappuccinos that I have every day. And it really grounds me in the work that I've been able to do. So political participation, 22% of parliamentarians around the world are women. In the US, it's about 20%. I always ask this quiz, what countries do you think have the most women in parliament?
Canada.
Okay, I'm going to read them to you. Yeah.
We are about to get schooled.
You are wrong. You are wrong, girlfriends, all of you. Every answer you gave was wrong. And I say this because I think this is a really good teaching moment for all of us. The country with the most women parliamentarians in the world is Rwanda. 64% of parliamentarians in Rwanda are women. Second is Bolivia. Third, Cuba. First, Iceland is 4th, the first European country, Iceland. Nicaragua, Sweden, Senegal, Mexico, Finland, South Africa, Ecuador, Namibia. Those countries have 40% or more women in parliament. And I did bring a map for people to look at, which is back there. Okay. If you want to, at the break, just get a sense of where we stand and where women stand around the world. It's very instructive, right? Because it means that things are happening in places that we don't necessarily think about. 17% of ministers in the world are women, cabinet ministers, and about 20 heads of state. Economically, women tend to be 20% of landowners. They make about 60% at best of what men make around the world. And again, a lot of them live in extreme poverty. We know rates of gender-based violence are high, and we know about 130 million girls aren't in school. So that sounds really daunting, and it is. But I say that to say we also know what works. What works is to look at the most effective intervention for all of this is keeping girls in school. For every year that a girl stays in school, her wages go up, her age of marriage, it goes out in time, she has fewer children, her maternal mortality rates are lower, she is more of a participant in her society, she is much more likely to run for office. So girls' education is one of the most important investments we can make globally to really ensure that girls, and then women, can participate in society. So I think that's really, really important. There are other things that matter. 2 other studies I want to talk about briefly. I know we have someone from McKinsey here yesterday, and my friend Cindy was at McKinsey. So a recent McKinsey study showed that if men and women had equal participation in the labor force across the globe, I'll use the maximum number, the minimum is pretty good too, but there would be $28 trillion more in gross domestic product in the world by 2025 That's the the GDPs of the US and China today, the world's two largest economies. So women, if we can get women the skills they need, starting with education in primary and secondary school, really looking at skills training, getting women into the economy, decreasing barriers to women's participation. There are a lot of laws that exist around the world. Things like, I mean, here we have laws like, no family leave, or don't have laws. In some countries, women can't work at night. Women are barred from certain kinds of jobs. There are tons and tons of laws out there. The one place you can look them up, because it's very interesting, is something called the Women, Business, and the Law Report. It comes out, I think, every other year by the World Bank compiles it, and it's a compendium of the laws around the world that hold back women's economic participation and the countries that are taking action. So I think those are really important things to say. The last thing I'll say is that studies also show that when women are engaged in peace negotiations and peace talks, peace agreements last anywhere from 2 to 15 years longer, which is critically important when we think about a lot of those people in the world who live on $10 a day. A significant number of them live in conflict or post-conflict situations, or they live in countries that are fragile. A lot of climate change drives conflict. Resource fights drive conflict. Ethnic considerations, when you don't have a good job base, drive conflict. So really looking at engaging women can also be a big driver of change. So I think that the thing that I learned really working at the State Department is that these are the things that we know work. It's a challenging world today that we live in, and I feel like the most important thing that I took away from my 5 years there and the work I did before that is the reason we do this work, we collectively, not just we, the US government, is because it's actually in our national security interest. It's in our national security interest to live in a prosperous, secure, and stable world, and if women aren't engaged, we don't live in one. And that's the bottom line. It is the right thing to do, but it's in our interest. It's in our interest as Americans and as global citizens that women are engaged and that we use the talent and resources that women bring to every single decision that gets made.